A reserve fleet is a collection of naval vessels of all types that are fully equipped for service but are not currently needed, and thus partially or fully decommissioned. A reserve fleet is informally said to be in mothballs or mothballed, an equivalent expression in unofficial modern U.S. naval usage as ghost fleet. In earlier times, and especially in British usage, these ships were said to be laid up in ordinary. Overview. Such ships are held in reserve against a time when it may be necessary to call them back into service, and they are usually tied up in backwater areas near naval bases or shipyards to speed the reactivation process. They may be modified, for instance by having rust-prone areas sealed off or wrapped in plastic, or in the case of sailing warships, the masts removed. While being held in the reserve fleet, ships typically have a minimal crew to ensure that they stay in somewhat usable condition. If for nothing else, the bilge pumps need to be run regularly to reduce corrosion of the steel and to prevent the ships from foundering at the moorings. When a ship is placed into reserve status, the various parts and weapon systems that the ship uses are also placed in a storage facility, so that if the warship is reactivated, the proper spare parts and ammunition are available, but like the ships themselves, the stored parts and equipment are prone to fall into disrepair, suffer metal corrosion, and become obsolete. Principal reserve fleets. The British Reserve Fleet was a repository for British decommissioned warships from c. 1800 until c. 1970. The United States National Defense Reserve Fleet consists of about 50 World War II ships that have been moored in Suisun Bay near San Francisco since the 1950s or 60s. The fleet includes military troopships and tankers. Alternatives. In practice, most reserve ships rapidly become obsolete and are scrapped, or used for experiments, target practice, or are sold to other nations, or become museum ships or artificial reefs. Exporting the vessels for shipbreaking or dismantling are alternatives to reserve fleets. More recently, the U.S. Navy has established a program to allow ships, such as Oriskany, to be sunk in selected locations to create artificial reefs. Recycling is another option, as in the case of the NDRF, the ships of which are said to be stripped of the paint, cut into pieces, and then recycled. Steel from pre-nuclear age ships, either mothballed or sunk and raised, called low background steel, is used in experimental physics when the experiment requires shielding material which is itself only extremely weakly radioactive, emitting less than present-day background radiation. Materials which were manufactured after atmospheric nuclear explosions had taken place reflect the higher ambient level of radioactivity that fallout has caused. Environmental concerns. The practice of exporting and dismantling ships has caused international protests as they contain toxic materials. In 2007, following studies that found that 20 tons of lead paint had flaked off the ships of the NDRF, environmentalist groups sued to have them removed. The Federal Maritime Administration has agreed to remove more than 50 of the ships as a result, 25 of which has been removed by 2012 and the remainder will be by 2017.